All right, so I'm Amy O'Brien. I know we got the poll there for some of you in the way. Amy Peterson O'Brien. I live on Brentwood. I'm the president of the Cahaba Homestead Heritage Foundation. And I'd like to introduce our other officers and tell you a little bit about how we came together to form the foundation and why. So our vice president is Kathy Prince. If you'll stand up and say hey, Kathy.
Hello, everybody.
Kathy's also an artist, among other things, and that's one way that Kathy and I connected before we knew our common interest in the love for where we live here in the Cahaba Project. Our secretary is another Kathy with the C, Kathy Freeman, Kathy Morrison Freeman. They're in the back. And our treasurer is Meg Ward, who I'm proud to share Brentwood Avenue with. And our historian is Gary Lloyd. If you don't know him, his name may be familiar to you. He's not just our historian, he's our media man and our webmaster. If you haven't checked out the website yet, it's cahabaheritage.org. There's a wealth of information about the history of the Cahaba Project. And I know there's a lot of information on the history of Trustful in general, but the foundation is really about the historic Cahaba Project of Trustful. And so, round of applause for our officers. They're such a great group to work with. We've been brainstorming for the last few months. We came together in like I said, a common cause of the common denominator is the love for the project. I could touch on a few of those things, and those of you, I think most of us here live in the project if you're here. And I'll go through a list of some of the things we love so much about the project. The location. You know, we're located here in the Cahaba River watershed, and it is a naturally beautiful place to live. And the green spaces we have in the parks really show, I think they speak to that natural resource that we have here. The character of the Cahaba Project. How many times do you hear that word expressed by people who live here or people who drive through? There's a very unique character, an identity to the Cahaba Project. There's a history here, and I'll touch on that a little bit. I'm not going to give you a long history lesson, but there's something I think we can all, a tangible piece of history we can all walk away with today. And the homes here, the historic homes, of course, they're older than 50 years, which alone makes them historic, but they're located in the historic district. It's the spacing between the homes that stands out, you know, compared to other neighborhoods. It's the walkable streets that so many people enjoy, not just the people who live here. You look out the street or sit on your porch, look out your window, and you're going to see people that have traveled to the Cahaba Project to enjoy the safety and the beauty of the streets here. It's an experience to walk down these streets. It's not just exercise. You know, you're in a unique space when you drive through or walk through the project. And our love for those aspects that make the project unique is one thing that brought us as neighbors together to form a foundation. So our mission statement, I'll read it so I don't mess up, is to support through education, outreach, and civic involvement such things that promote, perpetuate, and enhance the value of this community as a historic district on the National Register of Historic Places. So some of you may know we've been on the historic register since 2006. And I'll break up that mission statement in a little bit. Let me give you an overview. I don't plan to stand up here and talk to you for more than 30 minutes, okay, before I pass the mic around, and we want to hear from you and what you care about the project and what you want to see in the future of the Cahaba Project. Some of the projects and educational programs that we have planned, say we just founded in February, so we're pretty new here, but we've been discussing educational outreach to the school, programs where I have children, I have 3 young children, and so we're talking about volunteer opportunities where families can get involved and engaged in the community. That's another unique thing about a neighborhood like this, is a sense of community. So some of the things that I'm about to share that we can look forward to in the future are really centered around strengthening that sense of community in this neighborhood. It's the 21st century after all. You could drive through this neighborhood and feel like you've stepped back in time, and that's one of the wonderful qualities about it that makes you slow down and appreciate the space you're in. But it is the 21st century, and we're in our own bubbles. I know what it's like to be a parent with young children and looking at our screens all the time and involved with different projects outside and inside the home. And so we're excited to announce that our very first, am I losing anything in the wind? Our first event, if you could call it, is scheduled for June 14th. June 14th is Flag Day. And when everyone in the project wakes up on June 14th, they're going to have a little bag at their door. And you'll have one of these flags, and there'll be a few other items in there. And we're inviting everyone in the project to place this on their mailbox. There'll be a zip tie in there. Just imagine, by June 14th, Flag Day, everyone waking up, walking and driving through the neighborhood and seeing a flag on every mailbox throughout the project. Another neat thing is we reached out to the mayor's office to ask about putting the larger flags up and down Chalkville Mountain Road and downtown. And the city's going to do that. So those larger flags, some on downtown and on Chalkville Mountain Road, will be echoed throughout the project on a smaller scale. But that's something we can really look forward to. And we're inviting people to keep those up through July 4th. Keep it up longer if you want. But June 14th through July 4th. So there'll be a little note, a message from the Cahaba Project with those dates. Another flag-related item I want to mention is we're talking with the Boy Scouts to plan a flag retirement ceremony. And again, I know some of these events are citywide, and we're really kind of whittling it down to reaching out to the project at the Veterans Memorial. And as we have more details on that, we'll share it. If you want to be contacted by email to be reminded about any of these opportunities, either to volunteer, and there will be some children-aged friendly volunteer opportunities as well, or just to attend the events, and you're not always checking Facebook, like me, then please send us your email if that's better for you to be informed. We're not going to blow up your mailbox with a bunch of emails. This is really just to notify you in advance of something so you can plan ahead to attend. So there's a sign-up sheet there under the flag. And if you have any flags that you want to retire, Kathy Freeman collects those for neighborhood residents. Kathy, is it best to take it to your house if someone has it?
You can do that, or just call me and I'll come get it, or email, message, whatever you want to do.
Okay.
Probably have 30 now, and then there are drop boxes around town. Actually, if you want to, there's a drop box at the library, one at the center, maybe. I forget what the
At the library, the City Hall, and the Civic Center, I believe. So there are three beautiful boxes for retiring your American flag once it gets tattered, or an older one if you have, and you want it to be retired through whether it's through burning or burial. We're going to plan that ceremony, and we'll keep you posted. So that would be July 4th. July 3rd. The other project we've been involved in is the photo project. Kathy Prince has been working tirelessly in taking orders in batches. Have any of you received a photo through Kathy or have one already that you got through the library? So this is just an example of how she's had one framed in her house for a long time. These were from the tax assessors in the 40s. And you can get them through the Birmingham archives through Don Veazey, the curator there, or you can keep adding to piling up Kathy's list. But it's been a wonderful project. So thank you, Kathy, for initiating that. And perhaps by June 15th, some may be ready for people that are ready to pick them up. Is that correct?
I would think so. We got a batch Friday.
I received mine a few weeks ago, and I'm excited to get it framed. I'm going to place it by the door, so it's one of the first things you see in, one of the first things you see when before you leave the house. So I'm on Brentwood, as I mentioned, and many of you have probably been here a lot longer than I have. I've been here since 2013, And I live in the house where my husband grew up, and my mother-in-law moved in there in the mid-'80s. But I'm raising the third generation to live in the house, and that feels pretty darn special. But rather than one son upstairs, and this is not a 2-story home, you know, I've got 3 in that space. They're little though, and no one's complaining, so we're good for now. Kathy, do you want to say anything about the the photo project? Do you want the mic?
Well, I just want to appreciate it. I just want to tell everyone thank you for getting involved with it. You know, we thought we would get one for everyone who didn't have one of their house, and then, you know, that way we got a collection going. So we now have 106 in our collection. So as that, you know, we may do this again at the end of the summer and continue to try to grow our collection. And I think it's been really good. It's gotten people interested in the homes, and that's really what we were after. So appreciate everyone getting involved in it. Thanks, Kathy.
Does everything go back to the homeowner, or do you keep a copy of your actual tax balance?
I have a copy.
Yeah, so whoever orders the one and then the association's gonna have a seat, is that right?
That's right.
Kathy, am I correct that they were being donated to the library?
Well, that got to be an issue.
Okay.
So no.
Okay. Enough said. That's okay.
I think the downtown Birmingham Library has a turf battle with that. So.
Gotcha. Okay. I don't know the inner workings of the library
I
turf,
don't either.
but I respect it. So going back to the project that we've initiated, from the photo project to the flag day to the flag retirement ceremony, those are really about building, I say building community. We don't have to build community. We already have it here. Part of moving into a neighborhood like this is that community was baked into the design from the very beginning, and you feel it when you move in. But our mission statement is about enhancing that value, and I look at that sense of community as a real value for sure. It's not just a historic value, although that is very significant. I understand it's more significant to some than others. There's an aesthetic value. You drive around these homes, you see a very classic, timeless design. I was imagining last night, if we could just do this time lapse from the 30s, imagine it like TV. You see black and white, and you see these homes just on the mall, because this is a great example. Very few automobiles, people going in their homes, people coming out, what they would have been wearing in the 30s, the activities they might have been doing in their yard. Go through the 40s, and the 50s, right? All the changes in the automobiles, the clothing, the hairstyles, you name it, the distance of the commute to work, all of that changing. Perhaps even the number of kids they're raising. Just seeing that change, the one constant is the homes and many of the trees. They have stood the test of time, and that in itself makes this place extremely unique. And I want to mention another. So I mentioned historic value, aesthetic value, quality of life as a value. You move into a neighborhood like this, look how many people at any given time are out here walking and enjoying the green spaces with their families or on their own or with their dogs. That is special. You don't get that in just any neighborhood, and I'm sure many of you have lived in other neighborhoods like I have. This is something very unique about this place that adds to its value. And the economic value. I won't get up here and lecture you about property values, but if you live in one of these historic homes and your exterior of the house hasn't dramatically changed in all that time, and perhaps you've added on to the back of your house or you've renovated the inside, as so many have in this neighborhood, you've got a great value on your hands for that property value. One of the things that we started to research was the historic value, aesthetic value, economic value of historic districts. So I invite you to go look at that website. Gary has done a phenomenal job of condensing, who knows how, the quantity of information and whittling it down to these bite-sized portions that we can really that are evidence-based. All the sources are there. It's a wonderful resource. The Cahaba Homestead Heritage Foundation wants to be a resource. We are a resource. We're a resource for our neighbors. We're a resource for residents. We're a resource for our elected officials. So as a nonprofit, we're an educational resource, number one. And we take that very seriously. I'm not going to sit up here and spout opinions or, go waxing nostalgic, although I could, about living here. But I want to keep that really about the educational. And so when we're talking about the historic value, aesthetic value, quality of life, economic value of a place like this, that cumulative value adds something tremendous to the city of Trussville as well. And I may just be, preaching to the choir here if all of you already know that. I don't know how much our elected officials know that. I don't know that. I haven't been involved in this all that long. I just care enough to get involved. But I do know that a place like the Cahaba Project adds an infinite value to the reputation of our city and to the integrity of the city of Trussville. And that's the reason that we want to enhance and promote and perpetuate the value of this neighborhood. Think about, if you've got any comments you want to add, to what I'm saying, or questions that you would like the foundation to look into that we could educate ourselves and our neighbors and our elected officials about, please, there will be a time to pass that mic around. If you're not comfortable speaking on the mic, you can always contact us through the website in a personal email, because we want to hear from you. Let me scramble through, because I'm not going through this as a going off the cuff, So I wanted to mention something. May is Historic Preservation Month, and this is where I wanted to give you just a brief history lesson. And you may already know this, y'all, but I was learning recently that there are about 100, give or take, resettlement communities like this one that were created in the 30s. Most of them were farming communities, and that makes sense. This is the 30s, and we needed to sustain ourselves, food and shelter. I mean, it was down to the basics. Obviously, we're talking New Deal, and I grew up hearing about it. My dad was born in 1935. This one was different. The Cahaba Project, the slag heap village, the Cahaba Homestead Village was different out of all those 100 or so. So many of you know there was a slag heap furnace over here, and that had predated the Depression. Let me shift my pointer over here. Thank you for directing my compass. Well, that did something to the land here. When they started developing this land, thinking of farming, a farming settlement, the amount of slag, does everyone have a visual for what slag is? The amount of slag I've got some, you can take it home. It's a great paperweight. I thought we might have kids here, and that's super fun for them to pick up. The amount of slag in the dirt did not lend itself to a farming community. So they switched gears, and they considered the proximity of this neighborhood to Birmingham, which was already a well-established city, right, with neighborhoods on the outskirts. And when they switched that plan, that was everything. From turning this to a farming community where the homes that they would have built, like they did across the country, were not built solid like these. They just weren't built to I'm not saying they were built to be temporary, but they were not built with the materials, the best of the materials that you could get at the time, with, and I quote, no economy of labor that went into these homes. We can thank this slag that you can stumble upon behind the library for what this development became. It really became an experiment. It's sort of a way to show off when Rex Tugwell took over. And I know for one, I'm glad that he did, and it's very appropriate that when he said, I'm tired of these fancy names that all these developments are getting, we're gonna call this Slag Heap Village. It was everywhere. And we don't see it now so much, but you can certainly stumble upon it when you're walking behind the library or there by the river. Please take one home. And I'm serious, let that be your paperweight. Let that be a little bit of a reminder in your home about why your home was built so darn well. This has a lot to do with that. When I was mentioning this at the dinner table, because now my son is getting an earful of what I'm learning about the history of the project, and I mentioned pig iron for mining, to separate the iron, and he said, "You mean ingots?" I said, "My son's 8." And I said, "How did you know that word?" He said, "Minecraft." If you've got kids or grandkids, then you've probably heard about Minecraft, the shows and the video games where you're building things. And he said, "I have to get those ingots to build my swords, Mom." Okay. Well, I'm glad you're learning some factual information. So learning from our past, that was just a little brief history lesson that I wanted to touch on. But that leads us to educating ourselves at the present and how we're going to head into the future. We'll be celebrating the Cahaba Project Centennial in 2036, in 15 years. And that may be some forward thinking, but y'all, 15 years flies by. And our foundation would like to think about some things that we could plan for 2036, 37, 38. Outreach educational programs to the schools. Perhaps a future house museum that those children can walk across the school to and walk through and tour to imagine what it was like in the 30s and the 40s. Maybe it's our future engineers, architects, urban developers, educators, librarians, walking through that school and learning something. Maybe it's Auburn, maybe it's university students coming out learning about how the homes were built and the urban development of this, which was so, I say novel. The mass garden cottages were not entirely new, but this one is particularly unique. And the people will come. Educational outreach is huge, and again, that's not just for me as a parent. I'm an educator, I'm an instructor as well. So a house museum, educational outreach opportunities, community, volunteer-based opportunities for people to get engaged in. If you are the type of person that, like some of us and the officers that tend to raise your hand every time you hear something you want to get involved in, please sign up. Please put your email here, whether you want email communication from the group or because down the road you'd be interested in volunteering for some of these things. And that may be saying, all right, I'll stuff 10 of these bags with the flags and the other items, and I'll cover a Parkway from, Lake Street 100 block, 200 block. Okay? All you need some legs to carry you, or a wagon to hitch it on if you want to. But we will need some help with that, and we'd welcome your help. If you want to be our little elves on, June 12th and 13th delivering. So I'd like to pass the mic around a little bit. I mentioned the centennial that we're looking forward to and how the Cahaba Project is already such an appealing place to live, especially since the school opened up. As we know, we've seen a lot. If you've lived here since then, since 2016, you've seen so many families with young children moving into the project because of the value, again, of the wonderful school systems that we have. That's one of the reasons that my family stayed. We were considering homeschooling, depending on what school we would be zoned for. And when we ended up here and the school was being built, we said, no, we can't do better than this right now. We're going to stay here. We could probably buy more house in Hoover and be closer to my parents, but you can't get this there. You can't get this anywhere else. So I'm thrilled that we stayed, and I feel more and more every day invested in the community with not just myself, but with my family here. I'd like to pass the mic around, though, for what you want to see in the future. Maybe it's a centennial idea, but maybe it's just, this is what I want to see in 5 years in the project. This is what I hope to see when I drive around or walk around in 20 years from now. Does anyone want to say anything? I'd love to just kind of take notes. Don't go shy on me now. Think on that, please. Oh gosh, yes, thank you for reminding me of that. We had a very just informal small group tree walk, and we're planning more of those. And the kids and I had a great time. I walked by and learned a whole lot about what's growing right here around us. And it got the kids to get outside and touching things. And that might not be your cup of tea, but if it is, it's a wonderful thing to be able to walk around behind the schools and perhaps down the streets and learn more about the trees. I know for one, when I see one of these beautiful trees come down, I'm thinking, what happened? I'd like to know what at least just a layman's, sign to look for if one of the big trees in our yard is going sick, just to be able to know that. And if you care to know that, we're going to plan events like that too. So again, email, if you're not on Facebook, would be probably the best way to get in touch with you, and you just meet us wherever it is in the neighborhood. And again, as a parent, I know what it's like to be restricted to attend some events because it's not necessarily child friendly. We're accounting for that here. This neighborhood is full of families, especially now. So that's something that we're hoping to do more of those family-friendly events. If you live anywhere in the project, you might have seen me over the last, by 3 years ago, it was a stroller and 2 dogs and a child on me and 2 in the stroller. We were like a walking circus and loved every minute of it. Strained my left wrist, but it was worth it, I suppose, because we got to walk through and just notice every day what's going on in the neighborhood. See the same people kind of on their jogging route, walking route, and that's something. It's those accidental encounters on the way to and from home that you get in a historic neighborhood like this that was built with people in mind and not just built with automobiles and kind of transit corridors in mind. It was really built with people in mind, and that's another thing that makes historic districts so unique, and it's why we see more and more of them being preserved and held on to, because that quality of life is not something you get in a lot of newer construction neighborhoods. But anyone else want to say any ideas about things that, again, the future of the project? I'll open it up one more time to either pass the mic around or just stand up and say something about what you love about it that you want to see maintained.
I'll get it started. I've been here for just about my whole life, except for my time away in the military and in college. My name's Ralph Mitchell. I grew up on Rock Ridge, and my wife and I have 2 project houses now that my mom's passed away. So we have one on Oak Street and one on Rock Ridge. And what I love about this place is that you can come together like this and talk and meet your neighbors and talk. I also have fond memories of growing up here and raising our child here. Sheree and I thoroughly enjoy this place to raise our child, and now we bring our grandchildren here as much as we can. But when I'm talking to local elected officials and other folks, and they ask me about the Cahaba project, I always tell them that in Trussville, there are really 2 jewels. There are 2 jewels. And Bob, you know this probably more than I do. The utility department, if it hadn't been for the utility department, Trussville wouldn't be what it is today. And if you don't understand that, you need to do a little research about what the utilities has done for the city over time.
Many people know that.
No, they don't.
About that the other day, and had it for like, how many years?
I don't
Since
know.
1950.
Yeah.
7 years, and it's helped Trussville out.
It's always been the city's bank.
It's been unspoken, yeah, and you were running a little bit higher than some of these other cities that were really struggling.
Yeah.
You were up there.
Yeah. When I was on the city council many, many years ago, we owed absolutely nothing when I came off the city council, and that was due to the utilities. Today, the city owes $180 million they're on the hook for. So things have really changed in 20 years. But the other jewel this city has is the Cahaba project. Everything about Trussville is a spoke. The Cahaba project is the hub. In every other neighborhood, every other development around this city, it's a spoke off the hub of the Cahaba project. If the Cahaba project had never been here to be the hub, none of this would be here. And so I try to convince people there are 2 things that we really need to watch after and protect. And I'm sensitive to the amount of demolition that's going on with the Cahaba project. But one, the utility department. Without the utility department, the city cannot be financially stable over the long term and cannot control the growth or add to the growth. And the second thing is the Cahaba project. If the Cahaba project is not protected and preserved, and the Cahaba project goes down the tubes, the Cahaba project is the hub. So if the hub goes down the tube, the spokes that are attached to it are going to go down the tubes as well. So I would really like to try to energize you to get involved in protecting this Cahaba project, because it really is the heart of the city of Trussville. Thanks.
Anyone else want to share anything?
I found it interesting that you referred to it as being the hub. You know, the first newspaper was called Cahaba Hub.
That's right.
Porter Harvey was the editor of the Cahaba Hub in the late 30s, early 40s. And I grew up in Gunnersville, Alabama. When Porter Harvey left here, he went and founded a newspaper called the Advertiser Gleam in Gunnersville, Alabama. I was chief of detectives for the Gunnersville Police Department, so I've been interviewed for the Advertiser Gleam many times by Porter's son, Sam. And I didn't know until we moved here that my friend, Porter Harvey, and his son, Sam, had the history in this neighborhood. And I just found that connection very interesting. And I like to go to the library and look up those copies of the Hub and read them because his writing style didn't change from the 30s until the 70s and 80s. It was fascinating.
I lived in Arab for a while. Read the Advertiser Gleam.
My first job was at the Lucky Supermarket in Arab, Alabama.
Well, if you go through the library and look at the Cahaba Hub and you look at some of those early newsletters, I'd like to see our foundation do a little bit of a throwback to that sort of illustration on the cover. You know, it was Santa comes to the project. It was there were some where the references were so far behind me that I couldn't even. I said I want to find the page that harkens to the story because I don't even get the little editorial kind of cartoon on it. But it was just very animated, and if you look at that and flip through, and it said so-and-so's sister drove to, you know, so-and-so, and so-and-so had family visiting, and so-and-so's ill. It was the Facebook of the 30s, with people checking in on each other, without all the things that we detest about Facebook nowadays. It's wonderful, and I'd like to see us, as an artist, I was particularly interested in those illustrations and how as a means of communication, that newsletter would it'd be really neat to see something like that revived. Because Lord knows we have enough stuff on our emails and inboxes and Zoom calls. I don't know about you, but if you're doing any of your work by Zoom and by screen, holding a piece of paper in your hand is awfully nice and refreshing.
Amy, I do think we have maybe an earlier treasure, and that's the Cahaba River. Without the river, I'm not sure any of our, these aren't houses, these are homes,
Yeah.
would be here.
That's right. Across, you know, early settlements, you're looking at a river. You're looking for a river for your resources and for sustainability. Yeah, to form a community around. And I'm sure it was no different here, even though they were dumping slag in it. You know, it was. I was thrilled as I'm reading through the Trussville Comprehensive Plan, how much they refer to protecting the natural resources here. And what I'm interested in seeing us as we move forward is looking at our heritage resources. This is not just a destination for homes, for people to come live here because of the schools and the walkability and the size of the lots and the shady trees. It's not just that. This could be, if we carry it forward intact, a destination, an Alabama destination for heritage resources. And I'm not saying to be, you know, make this an amusement park or anything like that, but that sort of heritage type tourism, to come and see this and learn from this as our part of our national history and our Alabama history. Well, I just got chills thinking of it. We're in something so special here. Anyone else want to comment on anything? If not, you can always email us, like I said, and before you leave, if you did not get an email reminding you about this meeting from the CahabaHHF@gmail.com address, then we don't have your address, or we have not been given permission to use it, in which case we would not use it. So if you'd like communication about it, by email, please put your email down on the list right there under the flags. There's also a sign-up sheet right here. You know, Angie's List with vendors that people recommend. So this is Cahaba Project, vendors, servicemen, anything like that. Any vendors that you recommend that you call on, plumbers, you name it. If you want to mention anyone that you highly recommend, please go ahead and put it down here. Specifically for the project homes, because the project homes are unique. And whether it's plumbing or whether it's heating and air, there might be roofing. We have some particulars here in these historic homes, and you want to know that you're in good hands. And it helps to know.
I would also like to suggest that people might put down a company that they wouldn't recommend that screwed
Very
up
good.
their house.
Okay. If anyone's, yeah, you heard Ralph. Very
I
good.
mean, sometimes it's more important to know not who to
Sure.
hire rather than who to hire.
Good point. So just for a quick recap, before you leave, if you want your email, please put that there. The flags are a reminder that you can always drop off your flags with Kathy Freeman in the neighborhood or at any of the boxes, because we'll be collaborating with the Boy Scouts for our flag retirement ceremony. One thing I'm particularly excited about that July 3rd event that is in the works is that children will be able to safely, under the supervision of an adult, cut the flag and learn why they do that before the burning of the flag. And then we can all walk away from that event and wake up on July 4th with a whole deeper appreciation for the ritual behind that and the meaning behind it, the significance. So again, we'll update you by email about that event, and you can also look out for it on Facebook. And June 14th, look for a really, really special bag on your door inviting you to have those flags up. And a special message from the Cahaba Homestead Heritage Foundation, Incorporated. You get in the habit of saying that. The next meeting is June 15th, and there will be reminders on Facebook. And again, if you've signed up for emails, you would be getting that with it at least a week's notice. We'll give you plenty of time. I know in the summertime, people's plans can vary week to week, so we'll be sure and get that information to you. Officers, any other reminders that we can think of before we let everyone go?
I just want to encourage everyone to get involved and know what's going on and know the facts about things that are going on. We hope to be a factual resource, and we're working hard to be that. So don't just, as things develop over time, don't just listen to rumors or what you hear from your neighbors. Go to City Hall, go to the City Council meetings, or talk with your City Council members, or talk with us for factual information. We want to be that kind of a resource.
Thanks everyone for coming. We
I
look
wanna
forward to
thank
guest
all the
speakers.
officers for your hard work. We really appreciate all of it.
At our next meeting, we'll have at least one guest speaker and possibly a screen out here, because we wanted to show some of the video clips that we've been working on. And again, we know not everyone is seeing it on Facebook, so that second meeting might be a little more interactive and not just me talking to you. So we're really looking forward to that, and I hope for a higher turnout too. So talk to your neighbors, let them know, forward that email to them to invite them, share it on Facebook. And we hope to be able to grow this really community-based foundation. So, thank you, everyone.
That's his response when he found out there was a Civil War prison camp here.
Oh, yeah.
Civil War prison camp here. Ask Gary, what was your response to that?
What was my
Oh,
Well, I got to hold.
a cannonball.
A
that I found
cannonball.
as a kid.
Yeah, it was amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
There used to be a prison work camp up there.
Yeah, that's what it's talking about.
I'm going to put a little plug in here for Gary,
Concrete.
because my little history lesson was just, nothing compared to what our historian. If you want a book that Gary wrote, and I'm sure that this, he was limited, this was done as a series, a brief history series. So for the amount of content that this man put into this book in such a readable way, how many little history books that cover that much can you say that was a page turner? It doesn't happen that often. It's how he writes. if you want to get a book and have him sign it, can I say that, Gary? That you would sign it if they want to buy
It's
a
up
book?
to you.
Here you go. So these are by our author and historian, Gary Lloyd.
Can I say one thing?
Please.
I'm Arnold Reichert, and that's my wife Laura over there. She's been here forever. I've only been here for about 28 years, so I'm a newbie. But I do want to try to encourage everybody to talk to other people about what's happening here. I think Amy's hit and the officers have hit on the real way to publicize our area and strengthen our area is through education. And Laura and I got married about 20 years ago, maybe 21, and I said, and then she moved into the house that I had over here, and I said, well, get a good look, because people are changing things now, and houses are being added a second story to and all that, and they don't look the same anymore. And I've been really encouraged by the younger people that have come into the area that haven't done so much of that. You know, they're add to the back or the sides, and keep the flavor of the project. And I thought that was really great, because I thought after 20 years, I said, they're going to tear down these houses, they're going to build new ones, fancier ones, bigger ones, because we got big lots. People won't like this. They like that school over there. But if you can pass a word along that education and history that they've been talking about is where we're living. And Bob knows a lot about this, and you guys know a lot about this too. And that's the most important thing I think we got going. We can say, hey, we don't want your palace on this street. Or we can say it nice and say what the little signs say, you know. We're trying to preserve our area, keep it quaint when you do something. But anyway, and thank you, officer. We brought some moonflowers from home, and we'd like for y'all to take them. And if there's not enough, we live right over there in a gray house, and we got more. And they'll grow up if you water them and take care of them a little bit, and they bloom at night. If you cut the bottom out of those pots, you can plant it just about anywhere and give it some water every now and then, and they'll be pretty for your house maybe. And they bloom one night, and when the sun hits them, they go away. But anyway, thanks for coming, and thanks for being our neighbors. Yes?
Tell about where you're from and what your parents used to do when they came here. They came here to vacation.
I'm from Miami, Coral Gables, Florida, and my parents love this place. They come here. Is that what you mean? My parents, when they got elderly, they come here and spend a month with me. And then Dad came up here for an operation, and it was not successful, and he died. Mom stayed with me, and she just loved this place. And they, before that, they used to come up and sit on the porch and watch the kids play out here. And when school got out, see all the kids drive by. They thought this was the greatest place. They thought it was Mayberry, you know, just like the Andy Griffith Show, only better. And so they come up and really enjoy that, being in this community. Is that what you mean? Yeah. Well, and it was important to my parents, and they're Miamians, you know, what did they know?
Arnie touched on two things I want to say before we close about the school, number one, and we know the quality of the school is drawing a lot of families, but the building itself is a great example about enhancing, promoting, perpetuating the historic value of a place, of a building. It didn't come down. They didn't take it down. And I'm so proud of that school to take to drop my kids off and pass by. It's almost too good to be true that I can step out on my porch and see the Christmas tree, you know, and it's quaint. It is. When people drive by and see us on the porch or they're parking to come to the events on the mall, I know they're looking at us thinking, man, it must be nice to live there. And I'm like, you're right. It is amazing to sit here and enjoy this. But the school is a great example of how that's done well, of how it's carried into, you know, the next stage of its life as a building, serving the public, or whatever, you know, whatever the purpose of that building is. And the other thing Arnie mentioned was watching people walk these streets. Y'all, during the pandemic, more than ever, these streets were walking tracks of people, and I loved it because you'd see folks that you knew they were normal walkers, but man, they put on whatever shoes and clothes were the most comfortable, and they started walking in family groups. And I think of people living in smaller apartments or tighter, you know, knit homes without the space like this, without the spaces between the homes even, that give our eyes that break, that visual break. It's just, it's a pleasure to walk in an environment like this. And again, that's something unique to historic districts, with this spacing, with this development in mind. And the pandemic really, staying close to home, staying with young children, getting that cabin fever, I appreciated that more than ever, and I know others did. And I passed by some of our elderly neighbors that probably get out a whole lot more than they did during 2020, but that was, if they weren't walking, they were on that porch or the screened-in porch, and we were waving, and that was that was access to life out, you know, and community. It really was. And so it's baked in to a place like this. So I said I was going to let everyone go. I have a habit of doing this. We're going to close it up now unless someone wants to add something.
I just wanted to add, when you talk about the school, actually they rebuilt the school behind the old school. The facade where I went to school, you went to school, so many of us went to school, is there because of the pressure from the residents.
The facade of the building of this old school, the old high school, is still there because of pressure from the residents.
So,
wanna tear it
just
down.
goes to show you that we can exert positive pressure.
So many people tried to tear it down. So many people. And we stood fast and they did.
Thank goodness.
I was talking to someone the other day that said, using your voice like that to say, this is what we want for the future of where we live, is the ultimate form of self-governance. That's it. Yeah. So that's what we're doing. That's what we're doing at their foundation, enhancing, promoting, perpetuating the value of this very special place through education, through civic involvement, and through outreach. I hope you can walk away knowing really what our mission statement is about, and it's about community, and it's about maintaining what's so special about where we live. So, thanks everyone. Before you leave, please sign up your email. We've got our wristbands. It's a nice conversation starter. What's that about? And then you tell them about the foundation. The vendor list right here. If you know right now, you're like, oh, I better tell them not to call that company. Go ahead and write it down, please, because that's so helpful, and vice versa. And take water, take a snack home if you wish. Take some slag home. There's a bag. You got a new paperweight. You've got a Cahaba Homestead Village paperweight right there, waiting to go home with you. Take some for the kids in your life too. Tell them what it's about. Show them the silica I learned the other day that makes it look shiny like glass. So. All right, thanks everyone. We'll hopefully see you on June 15th.